Alright guys, so yesterday we worked on solving one-step equations by adding and subtracting, so I'm going to quickly review. The problem on the left-hand side says 15 plus b is equal to 23. Well, yesterday we talked about doing the inverse operation, so you always look on the side of the variable. Here I have b as my variable. B plus 15. Well, the inverse of adding 15, because remember that addition is the commutative property. You can either add left to right or left to right to left, and it's still the same. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw my line, and then I'm going to say, well, I can't really add negative b because then my variable's gone. So the only thing I can add opposite of here is negative 15. So I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. Some of you choose to add negative 15. That's exactly the same. Here, this cancels out, and what's left is b. b is equal to, well, now we just have 23 minus 15. That is equal to 8. So my final answer is b is equal to 8. Again, you're doing the inverse operation. Here, you kind of have the same setup, but in this case, it's negative 15 plus n is equal to negative 9. I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. The opposite of negative 15 plus n is going to be just to add 15 to both sides. Let's look quickly. You can see that negative 15 with positive 15 cancels out on the left hand side, and what's left is my n. Negative 9 increased by 15. Well, you know that negative 9 and 15, positive 15 has a larger absolute value, so it's going to win that tug of war game. So what's going to be my final answer? You can say that if Mr. Wynn owes the lunch lady $9, he deposited 15. At the end of the day, he's got $6. So n is equal to 6. And that's a little bit of review from yesterday's lesson. Today we're going to move on to solving equations by multiplying and dividing. My first question is, what is the inverse operation of multiplication? Well, yesterday we talked about the inverse operations of adding is subtracting, and the inverse of subtracting is adding. Today, the inverse operation of multiplying is going to be division. So basically, anytime you have a variable that's being multiplied, to isolate the variable, you're going to have to divide. What's the inverse operation of division? Same thing, you're going to have to multiply. So here's my first problem. I get x in the numerator divided by negative 7 is equal to 15. There's a couple different ways you can look at this. You can technically look at it as 1, change it to the pen tool. You can look at it as 1 over negative 7 times x is equal to 15. This setup is exactly the same as this one. But most of the time we forgo writing it like this and we just put x in the numerator. So we really get x over negative 7 is equal to 15. We know that what's happening to x right here is being divided, so the inverse operation of dividing by negative 7 is going to be multiplying both sides by negative 7. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by negative 7. The reason why I want to multiply both sides by negative 7, it's really not multiplying by negative 7, it's really multiplying by negative 7 over 1. Because if you quickly look, this cancels out and what's left is x is equal to, well, negative 7 times a positive 15. If you can't do that quickly in your head, we can work on our mental math right here. You know that negative 7 times 10 is negative 7, and times 15 times 5 is 35, so 35 times 70 is going to be a negative 105. And that's my final answer. How do we check our work? Substitute it back in. Negative 105 over negative 7 is equal to 15. You know that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. You can quickly check your answer using a calculator. So 105 divided by 7 should equal 15, and it is. So we know that the correct solution is x is equal to negative 105. Now if you put the answer as positive 105, that would be incorrect. Remember, you still go back to the triangle that we worked on in class, the negative and positive triangle. This is t divided by 8 is equal to negative 5. So t divided by 8 is equal to negative 5. And you know that what's happening to t is being divided by 8, so I'm going to have to multiply by 8 over 1. Remember that 8 over 1 is the same thing as being multiplied by 8. And then I'll multiply both sides by 8 over 1. This cancels out, and all I have left is t. Negative 5 groups of 8, negative times a positive is negative 40. This one you really don't have to check with the calculator. You can if you want, but you know that a negative 40 divided by a positive 8 will definitely give me a negative 5. This one says 816 is equal to 8 multiplied by some number. 816 is equal to 8 multiplied by some number. So this time it's not being divided, it's being multiplied. So the inverse operation of multiplying by 8 will just be dividing by 8. Watch how I wrote that. I just said divided by 8. This cancels out because 8 divided by 8 is just equal to 1, so it's just be C. And then 816 divided by 8. If you can't quickly do your mental math, you can use a calculator like I am. Just make sure that I check my work correctly at the same time. So 816 divided by 8. You will get 102. So C is equal to 102. How do you check your work? 102 times 8 does equal 816. So that's how you do that problem by dividing. So basically anytime you see a problem that's being multiplied by a variable. So this last problem we have is it's a word problem. It says you are getting paid $50 an hour, and at the end of the day you've earned $400. How many hours did you have to work to earn that kind of money? So my first step is I'm going to have to define my variable. So the variable usually comes from the question. So I'm going to say let h, and the question it says asks how many hours did you have to work. So just let h equals hours worked. Next, what do I know? I know that at the end of the day I earned $400. It says it right here. So equals $400. That's how much I made that day. And next, the left-hand side of the equation, how much money did I get paid per hour? Well, I got paid $50 for 1 hour. So naturally, if I get paid $50 for 1 hour, I can say 2 hours 100, 3 hours is 150. Well, I just want to be able to come up with an expression that lets me substitute any number in for hours, and that will give me however much income I made that day. So I'm just going to say 50 times h, the hours worked. And look at my setup. Okay, I have 50 multiplied by the number of hours, so $50 by the times the number of hours will equal $400 that I made at the end of the day. This is a multiplication problem, so in order to isolate h, I'm going to have to do the inverse operation, which is divide both sides by 50. This quickly cancels out that side, and I have h is equal to, well, I know that 400 divided by 50, these two first zeros cancel out, and what's left is 40 divided by 5, which is 8. So my final statement is you've worked a total of 8 hours to earn $400. And that's how you set up a word problem. You start with what you know, and you try to balance out the equation, and you solve either by multiplying or dividing, depending on what it asks. That's all I have for today. Hopefully you guys have a good day.